The Dragonback series by Timothy Zahn. Book 4, Dragon and Herdsman. Chapter 25. The next morning, as the Pukas performed their morning dance, Dracos told Jack, Allison, and Tanim the whole story. They were, to put it mildly, unimpressed. "That's it?" Allison asked when he'd finished. "You've got us an extra point, an exit point, barely 100 yards from where they're expecting us to come out anyway?"
"They did not have time to go farther," Dracos told her stiffly. "And it is not merely those 100 yards. If they believe we sent a decoy east, they will almost certainly conclude that we have gone west. They will therefore concentrate their forces on that part of the riverbank."
"He's right," Jack said, coming to his partner's defense. But it was clear the boy wasn't any happier than Allison was. "At least it gains us a little time." "Only if the SNA is hanging around somewhere nearby and happens to be listening when we need it to," Allison countered. "Otherwise, we're no better off than we are right now." "Fine," Jack said. "What do you suggest we do then?" "Only one thing to do," Allison said. "We pull back, dig ourselves in as best we can, and wait for my friends." "Who could still be 10 days away?" Jack shook his head. "Not a chance. Frost will nail us long before then."
"Unless there are more opponents to deal with than he expects,"
Tanim offered.
"What do you mean?"
Dracos asked.
"You are a warrior of the Kada,"
she said.
"Could you not train us to fight alongside you?"
Dracos looked at Jack, saw his same surprise reflected in the boy's face. That wasn't the kind of idea he would have expected Tanim to come up with. Certainly not this quickly.
"In theory, yes,"
he agreed, looking back at Tanim.
"But it is not as simple as it sounds."
"On the other hand, I only had 10 days of training in the Wynyard's Edge," Jack reminded him. "And we see the kind of results that produced," Allison commented under her breath. "My point," Jack continued, sending her a dark look, "is that any training he could give her would be worth something." Allison shook her head. "It's a point, but it's a pointless point," she said. "Even if he could bring her completely up to speed, 2 Kadar warriors aren't going to be enough to tip the balance here."
"Why must it be just 2?"
Tanim asked.
"You woke me. Can you not wake the others?"
Allison sighed. "The problem, Tanim—" "Wait a second," Jack cut her off, a cautious excitement in his voice. "That's not such a bad idea. Remember, they only need an hour on a host for every 6 hours off. That means that we can shake them out of their if we can shake them out of their sluggishness, you and I could handle 10 to 12 Kadar between us. Dracos?" Dracos gazed out at the dancing pukas, a whisper of cautious hope moving through him. If it were at all possible. But it wasn't. It had taken Allison a full day to awaken Tanim, and both of them had been effectively helpless the whole time. It would take far too long to build up the kind of fighting force Tanim and Jack were talking about.
"In principle, you are correct,"
Draco said reluctantly.
"But in actual practice, we simply do not have enough time."
"Unless we can find a way to get Frost off our backs for a while," Allison said. Dracos looked sideways at her. The girl was watching him, a darkly suspicious look on her face. Had she guessed what he was planning?
"Indeed,"
he said, forcing himself to meet her gaze.
"We shall have to think about ways of doing that."
"Looks like they're done," Jack commented, nodding to the pukas as he got to his feet. "Time to be off." Dracos will have to stay up front with me today. He's the only one who knows exactly where we're going," Allison reminded Jack. "Unless you'd like to take point this morning and let me handle the pukas." "No, you go ahead," Jack said. "Their day's going to be strange enough without breaking the routine right out of the box." "Okay," Allison said, standing up as well. "Tanim can stay with you and help with your rear guard. You'd better take the machine gun, though. Fine by me, Jack said, scooping up his pack and the weapon. Go get Greenie, and I'll tell Hren we're breaking camp. Come on, Tanim. Jack headed off, the gray Kada trotting alongside him.
We will be going that way,
Dracos told Allison, indicating the direction with a flick of his tongue.
I will await you.
Just a second, Allison said as he turned to go. I want to know what you and Jack are planning that you haven't seen fit to tell me about.
Jack and I have no private plans,
Draco said, choosing his words carefully. Allison snorted. Fine, I'll rephrase. What are you planning that you haven't seen fit to tell me about? Dracos' first impulse was to again deflect the question, but if he was going to leave Jack in her care, she deserved to know the entire truth.
Unless we can make contact quickly with Uncle Verge, I intend to take the comm clip and head downriver,
he told her quietly.
With luck, I will be able to draw the Malison Ring soldiers into pursuit before they realize that Jack is not with me.
And then what?
And then, as you suggested, you and he must try to hide until your friends arrive.
I meant what happens when your 6 hours are up. Dracos turned to look at Jack, busily urging Hren to his feet.
I will die.
For a moment, Allison was silent. I gather Jack doesn't know anything about this, she said at last. How are you planning to keep him from finding out? Dracos grimaced.
I expect the Malison Ring to be gathered in force by the time we reach the river, he said. In the fury and confusion of combat, I should be able to slip away unnoticed.
Leaving us to fight them alone?
I will make sure you have made it to safety before I leave,
Draco said.
At that point, it will be up to you to lead.
Terrific, Allison growled. My first military command. That'll look really impressive on my gravestone.
Do not speak that way, Draco said sternly. You have had military training. I can see that. You can do it.
She exhaled noisily. Let's just hope it doesn't come to that. She tapped her collar. I presume you still want me to code my comm clip to the SNA's frequency?
With Jack's comm clip dangling from a tree, yours is now our only way to contact Uncle Verge, Dracos reminded her.
I'll take that as a yes, Allison said dryly. Easy enough to do while we're traveling.
Quiet!
Dracos cut her off as the sound of distant lifters caught his ears.
They are in the air!
Where?
To the west,
Dracos said.
Moving southeast, I believe.
Southeast? Allison echoed, frowning. Like they're circling around behind us, dropping troops?
That is the correct pattern,
Dracos confirmed.
But they are not dropping soldiers. The transport is moving too quickly and too steadily for that.
Which means Frost has something new planned, Allison said, grabbing her pack and slipping it over her shoulders. Great. Jack, hustle it! Jack looked up quizzically at her, and as he did so, Draco strained his ears and caught a new sound.
Quiet,
he warned Allison.
The floater is coming this way. Good morning, Jack.
A booming voice came faintly from the direction of the floater. Frost's voice, amplified by a set of loudspeakers.
I hope you had a good night's sleep. My men tell me you're in this area somewhere, so I'm assuming you can hear me.
Come on, Allison said, beckoning to Dracos.
You've caused me a lot of trouble, Jack,
Frost continued as they scrambled down the hill and came alongside Jack and Tanim.
Way more trouble than you should have. Almost more trouble than you're worth. But that trouble ends right now.
Any idea what he's up to? Jack murmured, peering up at the trees in the direction the voice was coming from. He's got the capstan circling around behind us, Allison said. but Draco says it's going too fast to be dropping troops.
So here's the deal,
Frost said.
You've got 10 minutes to follow the sound of my voice and get to a big clearing right below the floater. If you surrender there, I promise your girlfriend and the Erasmus can go in peace.
Dracos frowned, flicking out his tongue. There was a new scent suddenly drifting toward them, an odor he couldn't quite place.
Option 2 is that you keep going until you reach the river,
Frost went on.
Means more walking for you, but hey, you're probably used to that by now. If you want to do that, fine. We don't mind waiting a little longer to pick you up.
What is that smell?
Tanim asked, her tongue flicking out rapidly as she tasted the air. What smell? Jack asked, sniffing.
I don't know what it is,
Draco said,
but it seems familiar. And then there's option number 3,
Frost said, a sudden dark edge in his voice.
That's the one where you stay right where you are, and you and all your buddies get to burn to death.
Allison inhaled sharply. No, she breathed. He wouldn't. And suddenly the strange odor clicked.
He would, and he is,
Draco said tightly.
The transport is spraying a semicircle of aviation fuel across the trees behind us. He is going to set this part of the forest on fire.